I'm pretty happy with the position of that. I'll start assembling the frame counter gear there and see if we can get that to work. So we start with this piece. There we go. That's our start position for our lever then in that case. And the counter dial here what hits that? Okay, so that goes in there. The bush that holds it all together goes in here, and remembering it's left-handed threaded so that I'm not fighting with it trying to get it to start when it's going the wrong way. Oh, the frame counter's even working. Well, that's a bonus. I'll zoom you in a bit. This dial holds our numbers, and that's fixed, it doesn't shift. The outer dial here, with a little engraved marking on it, that marking shifts and counts around on that dial. You see it's right here at the back of the camera at the moment. You watch, you'll see it advance one. There you go. So that's all go. So we've got that bit to work. I will just put that spring over there, and I might even cheat by putting the post on that supports the top of the camera and running a screw through that. Just to keep that in place while I'm playing. Is it going to go for me? Yes, just. It'll just tend to keep that spring in place. That's good. So the film advance is working. The shutter release button, of course, holds the disc in place for the frame counter. Come on camera, focus. You're going to focus? Yes, thinking about it. Normally it sits on in that orientation. I won't do that screw right up tight because then I'll only have to fight to get the thing off again. Let's give it a little bit though. That's better. The tab on that frame counter disc is a bit folded up. Now it's not engaging positively. Ah, that's fine. The shutter release seems nice and smooth in its action too. I think that's the top of the camera effectively functioning. I have to clean the viewfinder and the exposure meter, and looking in at the base of the exposure meter, I could see that that was infested with ants too. And once they're clean, they could go on the top of this body, and then I've got to turn my attention to doing the shutter after that. But so far so good. We've made a good start on this. It's no longer infested with livestock. I'll just run that screw in there just so I don't lose it. And it's starting to look something like a camera again. Right, this exposure meter and viewfinder. It's not exactly filled with ants, it's relatively well sealed, that meter. So it looks more like there's just contamination from where they've been, and dust and other dirt that had found its way into the camera. It doesn't look like they've set this up as another breeding chamber. The meter's fairly well sealed against the ingress of dust by virtue of the paper washer and the tape around the other side there. Right. Well, I'm pleased that this is not absolutely infested in the finder with ants, because I would not want to have to dismantle the meter and try and fix that. Right, some glass cleaner, and I shall try cleaning the front finder window. I'll start by cleaning the outside surface, because of course it's the easiest to get to. And once you've got the front surface cleaned, it makes it much easier to judge how successful you've been cleaning the inside surface. We know ants have been right through this camera, so the viewfinder lens is probably contaminated with thousands of ant footprints, if nothing else. can see a mark right up here in the corner that I don't seem to be able to get at. Might poke at that with a wooden toothpick. Yeah, with something crusty right on the edge of that lens. We'll blame the ants because we're blaming them for everything else. That's looking a lot happier. There's not even much ant debris on the tray. So they can't have liked living near the meter. That looks okay. Pop that tray to one side and bring back the body, I think. Where is it? There it is. There should be 3 screws. And if I recall correctly, it was a small headed screw at the back and 2 longer ones at the front, which are not identical. That's fun. Let's try the bigger one at the front and see how we get on. It's running in. And the smaller of the 2 at the back. Doesn't want to start, something's not lining up correctly. Now we're away. Alright, but that's the meter in place and the viewfinder in place, of course. I've got the top cover for that viewfinder, which I can clean and put in place now. Come on, digital camera, do your stuff. It's extremely quick to shift its point of focus when I don't want it to, and no good when I do. Right, let me find that cover, shake off the 10 dead ants. Give this a thorough clean. Right, that should fit on there, I think. Probably in that orientation. There's another bloody dead ant. Perhaps in that orientation. Let's have a look. No, it's got to go that way. Two small screws. Of course, the challenge with doing a job like this is to not have any screws left over at the end of the job, and not get to the job to put in the last screw and discover that it's too short or too long. Right, that's the finder. Come on, camera. Catch up. I don't know that I need to have the top off in order to fit the front of the camera. In fact, I don't think I do. So at this stage I might take the opportunity of putting the top cover on the camera, and then that part of the job will be done. Likewise, I'll be able to put the leatherette on the base of the camera, and that will just leave us with our shutter assembly to be serviced and installed. And once the top's on, of course, I will also be able to deal with the meter dial and make sure that's right. One thing I have noticed about the meter, and you probably have too, is that that meter window is quite grey and hazy looking. It's surface scratching. I'm going to have a go at that with some Perspex polish, see if I can improve that. Well, as I said in the previous piece, I was going to put the top cover back on this camera, and I've done that. And so I have my film advance mechanism working correctly, frame counter working correctly. Have my dials back on the top of the exposure meter. Was able to check the exposure meter and see what sort of response I got from it. And unfortunately the exposure meter reads about 4 stops low. The selenium cell's obviously failing. I don't really think I'll be able to find a better selenium cell in order to fix it, because all the selenium cells made for that camera will be in a similar state, I would think, or close enough to it. So it'd certainly be a lottery buying another camera to use as parts. But I have the leatherette back on the base of the camera, so the camera body is effectively ready to go as far as it's going to be. It'll certainly function well enough as a camera without the exposure meter. These days that's not a terrible handicap, because anyone with a smartphone in their pocket can usually download a light meter app to use on their phone, and they work quite well, or can do. So that's it for that part. My next part, of course, is to tackle the shutter assembly, which, like the camera body itself, was absolutely chock-a-block with ant nest. But that'll be my next thing to do. So, the body to one side, and it'll be dealing with this. So, as I did with the body, you can possibly see on the front, around the front of that lens there, all the squashed ant eggs or larvae or whatever the hell they are. So I'll deal with this in the same way I dealt with the camera body. I will do it all on a tray, and that'll contain all that biological muck that I do not want spread all around the place. I'm going to try something different today. I've got some isopropyl alcohol here. I'm going to try sluicing this rubbish off the component with the isopropyl, see if that'll help shift some of this stuff. And the answer is no, made no difference. That sticky remains of ants and their descendants are stuck there and will need to be brushed off in much the same way as previously. I've got to remove this baffle, so I need to remove that ring from the back there that's retaining things. I think that retains the whole shutter in that plate by the looks of it, but we shall see. I'll have a go at getting a tool onto that and see if I can get it loose. Right, through various nefarious methods I've managed to get that retainer loose, and hopefully I'll be able to get that off the back of the camera, back of the shutter. I couldn't get enough purchase holding the tool in my hand and to turn that. Right, there's our shutter loose from the front plate. Pop that to one side. Let's inspect this front plate. Yes, it's got a lot of resonance there. All dead, of course. Pop that shutter to one side. These parts I'm going to spray down with kitchen cleaner. Clean all of that dead crap out of there. Oh, yuck. Alright, that part can go away and be washed in some very hot water. Likewise this part. I will clean those components. And after that come back and start on the shutter. Well, these parts are looking a lot happier now that they're freed from their layer of ant scunge. So they can be popped to one side. I can turn my attention to dealing with the shutter. And here I have the shutter assembly, well covered in dead ants and pieces thereof. I would rather not have to wash this, but it may come to that. I'm going to see if the rear lens group will come loose. I don't know how likely that is. No, it does. That's good. Given how tight the retaining ring was, I really thought I would strike trouble there. The front of the shutter will remove the lens. The lens is a triplet construction. I expect to loosen the 3 screws holding the focus scale ring to the front group, or 2 in this case. Lift that ring off. The front group will probably unscrew. It does. It's very stiff. Means the grease is quite stiff. There we see the centre group. It's got 2 pinholes in there to engage a tool. We don't need to remove that to get into the shutter. If I undo the lock screw here, it's a half head screw. If I turn that so that it clears the retainer ring, with a bit of luck the retainer ring will turn. Let's put a bit of solvent on there. That's pretty reluctant. That retainer ring is aluminium. It's quite thin in cross section. It's very easily damaged. Normally I will use a toothpick or something wooden to push that around. I'm going to see if I can find a bamboo stake and have a go at it with that. Right, let's try this bamboo skewer. See if that will turn that for me. It's not moving. It's not moving even a little bit. That's well and truly stuck there. Can I get onto that with this tool? Yes, I've got it turning. Oh, only just though. It's not going to go without a fight. That may have been done up very, very tight. It may even have been cross-threaded. The feel of it is... Oh, it's very unhappy. Oh, that's incredibly tight. Perhaps it had a bit of corrosion there to help it. Alright, the front ring has come off. There we have the shutter. Looks fairly conventional. It's in the cocked position at the moment. Yeah, it even fired. Well, that's good. As it fired, it flung a dead end out, and that's very good. So my next task is to dismantle this shutter and then clean all its componentry. Right, I'll gather some tools. Oh, I might have enough. Oh yes, I'll gather some tools.